Everybody for attending today. Welcome to Building Your Firm's Cloud Strategy. So my goals in this session together is to review a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of cloud, talk about how we build a strategy, how we build a plan to move to cloud-based applications within our organization, and then touch on some ethical considerations that I think are really important. Let's start out with the topic of what is the cloud. Now, if I could watch people raise their hands, I'd ask the question: how many people used AOL email back in the late 80s and early 90s? And probably, well, unless you're really young, and there are a lot of those folks out there that are saying, what's AOL? A lot of folks raise their hands like, well, that's cloud. That's your data in somebody else's data center, right? We store the emails in their data center, and then we access it on our computer. That was cloud. We just called it a different thing back then. But the reality is that that the cloud is really just a bunch of servers that aren't in your possession. And cloud providers might show pretty pictures like this, right? But the data centers that I've been to look more like this. They're a little bit crazy, but it's your data in these data centers, in some data center outside of your control. Now, there are a lot of benefits to that data being in a data center, right? Let's talk about that for a little bit, because what I want you to do is think about your server under your roof, okay, or in your office building, behind a couple deadlocked doors, right? And then I want you to compare that to what we are looking at getting in a data center, the benefits of a data center. We have redundant internet, multiple internet sources. We have redundant electricity. In fact, in some of the early days, many of the data centers were built near alternative forms of power, near rivers, near dams, right? Where if the electric went out, they could still operate without electric from the electric company. They have backup generators. They have enormous cooling systems and high security. Multi-factor authentication, biometric technology. The data centers that I've been to, it's you feel like you're going into the Pentagon in order to get access, right? And then within there, they still have caged-in areas that are inaccessible without further multi-factor authentication. These data centers are built to withstand hurricanes, tornadoes, most natural disasters. Probably the only thing that they can't withstand is a nuclear attack, right? And if that happens, we're probably worrying about much more important things than recovering a document that we drafted yesterday. But suffice it to say, these data centers, in order to replicate the amount of security, the redundant internet, the redundant electric in our own environment, would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. These data centers, oftentimes, you probably drive by one or two every day. If you live in a big city, they're very discreet-looking buildings, usually the ones that I've seen. But again, they are built to withstand natural disasters and have security embedded and built in that we could just not replicate in our own environment. So that's kind of the hardware infrastructure, the physical infrastructure of a data center, and some of the benefits. There are many flavors of cloud. There's more than just these two, but these are the two that I want to focus on here, and I don't think that we need to overcomplicate the discussion. We have software as a service, we often refer to as SaaS, And we also have infrastructure as a service. And in many of the organizations that I go into where I do a technology assessment and we try to figure out their cloud strategy or solutions that they may want to migrate to, we always look at these two. And so a SaaS solution is what we often refer to as a pure cloud solution, a program, an application that runs within a browser. Okay, so two examples of those that are very common in our legal world would be NetDocuments and Clio. Okay, there are many others, but those are the two that I'll just point out that I think are very almost everyday conversation. They come up in everyday conversation when it comes to legal technology, so that you may be familiar with those. Infrastructure as a service, by contrast, is is hosted as your servers are replaced by the servers in a data center, but you take your programs that you own, so your on-premise programs like traditional programs like Time Matters or Amicus Attorney, Tabs Practice Master, programs that you may have been using for decades, and you have them installed in a data center outside of your possession, and then they deliver to you those applications via some type of thin client technology. So like a remote desktop technology, thin client. Some of us older folks remember dummy terminals, right? So it's a much better experience than that. However, you get to the benefit of infrastructure as a service is you get to keep the programs that you've been using forever, and they're just installed in a data center in a different location and then delivered to you through some type of thin client technology. The downside to that is there's a lot of benefit actually to true cloud solutions like NetDocuments, like Clio, and the like, where applications on tablets and remote accessibility is a much better user experience. Okay, so I'll demonstrate a couple of those examples here in a moment. But those are the two main flavors. We have software as a service, and then we have infrastructure as a service. And you don't you don't have to go all in on all SaaS or all infrastructure as a service, or you can actually have a combination of both. And there's just some situations where that might actually be a good idea, right? But let me stop for a moment and demonstrate kind of one of the major differences between the two. So I am going to demonstrate a pure cloud-based solution, and the one that I'm going to focus on is NetDocuments. Okay, so what I've done is I switched over to Chrome, which is my default browser, and you can see the program is actually running within the browser itself, and so that's kind of the true tale sign of how we typically identify a pure SaaS solution. So when I log into my computer, I use a single sign-on technology, and then I just launch my browser and hit NetDocuments, and I'm in. So getting in access to the program is very easy, very similar to double-clicking on a shortcut like you're used to. However, now when I click on, what I do is I have all of my active matters bookmarked, so they're on my home page, and I'm one click away from all the documents, let's just say in my Jeff Lebowski matter. Okay, and then within that matter, I'll just switch over to my summary view, I can have all of my documents organized any way I want, by correspondence, memos, pleadings, and the like. Okay, and this is all fully customizable, but you can see when I click on a particular, and we'll just go to my list view and go to my documents. When I want to launch a document, okay, or I click inside of a folder, it is going to actually, we'll just go ahead and select this one. it actually downloads the document, it checks it out. And then what's unique about this, and there's a common misconception that when we work with cloud-based applications, we're in a browser the entire time. And we're not. Like in this case, I launch a Word document or a PDF or an email, and it actually downloads locally, and I get the awesome, fast, local experience that I'm used to. Because right now I'm in local Microsoft Word, and it's lightning fast. I click, I type, it's immediate, and that's what people want, right? They want to draft their, especially documents. They want to draft their documents with lightning speed, be able to edit the documents, and then save it, and then be done, right? So I can go in here, I can add text, and then I can save. I could save as and save as versions. In this case, I'm just going to hit save, and then file, and then close, and then it uploads the document all in the background. It checks it back in, and now I have that document is stored in the cloud. It's accessible by everybody who is within my organization. It's accessible on an iPad, an iPhone, an Android-based tablet, an Android-based phone, from my home, from a hotel, and it's the same experience whether I'm in the office or I'm in a hotel or I'm in North Dakota, right? It just doesn't matter. So that is an enormous, right? That is an enormous benefit of a cloud-based solution. And likewise, just to give you one more example, if I pop over to my email, there's my local email. And so within my email, if I want to save email, I can select an email, and then I'm going to use a module they call ND Mail, which uses, it's a little bit of machine learning and predictive filing, not a little bit, a lot. It's actually quite sophisticated and pretty cool. When I select a particular email, it makes a prediction of where I should save the email. And then all I do is check that box, hit file, and then I'm done. It's filed away. When I draft an email, and we'll just address this one to Baron in my office. Before I do, let me reveal my ND Mail panel. So you can see it's blank now when I don't have anybody in there. Now I'll select Greg, and then my prediction panel is refreshing, and it knows that I might want to save an email in a different location if I address it to Greg or to Baron. And as I continue to address my email and write content within the email and add attachments to the email, the predictions change because it's analyzing the words within the email itself and the attachments, and it's changing the predictions. And the only thing I need to do is reveal that panel, check the item that I want, okay, and then hit send, and it's done. It's sent to those people, to the recipients, and it's filed away. And this, again, this is all happening locally and interacting with the cloud. So we have the benefit of the SaaS solution and the luxury and the convenience of a local program and the speed of a local program. Okay, so that is I think a wonderful example of just a beautifully designed cloud application that really brings us into the year 2020, taking advantage of all the technology that's out there. So that is I think what I refer to as model cloud. If I'm going to go cloud, I kind of want to go full Monty, and I want the cream of the crop, right? I want all those luxuries of that remote capability and interaction with local programs. Now, sometimes that is not achievable because there are some limitations in some programs. And let me give you one example that I think is very, very applicable to a lot of firms. There's one area of cloud that is a little less mature than other programs. So in the document management world, document management for legal, for law offices and and corporate legal departments and law offices, I think is very mature, and that's in large part because of NetDocuments. NetDocuments is probably, at least in my memory, it is probably the pioneer of cloud applications in the legal world. It's been around 20 years, and that is a long time. That is a very mature product. So as a consequence, when we look at maturity of cloud applications, when I say that, I mean, how feature rich is it? What can it do? What can't it do? It is the cream of the crop. It is very mature. Now contrast that to, let's say, time billing and accounting. Not so much, right? Cloud applications for time billing and accounting came about much later. They're still catching up. If you are trying to do e-billing and perform other functions, high-end functions, especially the larger the firm gets, and handling even more data, the products aren't quite there, right? And I've been saying that for actually quite some time. So it really depends on the application that you need. So sometimes our clients, because we have to do that complex e-billing, we're still stuck, in other words, with using on-premise time billing and accounting solutions. But we want to go cloud, so that might be actually a great reason why we go with hosted infrastructure for some of those solutions still that are keeping us right with those on-premise solutions until the cloud-based applications catch up. Okay, so it's not an all or nothing thing. To the extent that we can get it all or nothing, that's fantastic. Let's talk about some of the advantages. Less reliance on IT services, especially local IT services, IT people that we have to hire, right? If we can migrate our environment to all cloud, we can eliminate, in many cases, completely eliminate all local IT services, and that could be an enormous savings. These are some of those hidden costs, right, that we sometimes don't think about, like, well, the third-party people we bring in, right, to maintain our email, our Exchange server, to fix programs, to run program updates, those type of things. Security, we already touched on that a little bit with the data centers, but we haven't even talked about cybersecurity and security certifications, right? More on that in a little bit. Lower cost up front because we're not buying software, we're not buying servers. No hardware required. Now, there's some hardware required. We still need our workstations, but hardware in the sense of servers. Now, I'm not going to say Apple or PC. It's not complete. Cloud solutions don't make the situation completely ecosystem agnostic. However, you can definitely have a mixed environment because there are paths to integrate with Apple computers as well as PCs. In fact, I just left an organization yesterday that I was working with for 3 days, where there are 10 Apple users, and they're hardcore. They're not going to give them up, and leadership didn't want them to, and so we have a mixed environment of Apple and PC. Updates are included, right? And so and the thing that I like about cloud updates is they usually trickle in every month, every couple months, every quarter, and they're smaller, bite-sized updates. They're not huge interruptions in service, and we have to get training and invest in training because they're more bite-sized, right? And so we don't have to worry about replacing an entire version 3 or 4 years later. It's this major ordeal, and they're included in the cost of the monthly service. Tech support is included. Anywhere access, we touched on that already. Anywhere we have internet connectivity, and then data backup and or redundancy. They are actually two different things. At a minimum, there's redundancy because with the cloud-based applications, you have redundant servers that exist in different parts, usually different geographic areas of the country. In case there's a natural disaster on the East Coast, there's a data center that gets automatically kicked in. We don't even see a blip in service because the redundant data services on the West Coast, right, or somewhere else. Backup, right? There's probably backup to many cloud-based services have backup as part of it. That's just something you have to shop. I'll give you one example with like Office 365. We often think that that hosted Office 365 with hosted Exchange, what we call Enterprise 3 or Enterprise 5. We often think that there's data backup, that there's not really a point in time data backup, there's redundancy. So if server goes out, the other one kicks in. So with that in particular, that solution in particular, then we need to contract with to get additional like point in time data backup. But there are cloud solutions for that as well. A quick drawbacks: no internet, no access. That used to be a big issue 20 years ago. That is just, if you live in a major metropolitan area, that is just not a problem today. Let me just give you a quick example. If the internet goes out in my office, we have an alternative internet service provider, and if they both go out, which has never happened, I could tether on my phone, I could go down the street to Starbucks, or I could go home to work, right? So it just gives us a lot of options. Updates are not always, the best timing. Again, because they're bite-sized, it's usually less of an issue today than it used to be. They could cut you off. You stop paying, they could cut you off. You don't own the software, you don't own the servers. That's a potential thing that could happen, I suppose. And in the early days, vendor bankruptcy happened actually with some pretty big companies. Today, they tend to escrow funds in the event of insolvency. So you continue to have your data and have access to your data in the program for months, and then you can extract the data out. I haven't seen a situation like that in years, maybe even a decade, but those were some of the early, I would say these were early concerns. They just don't happen today. So when we look at your strategy itself, it's really important that you define your requirements. And that is, you inventory what you have. I call it PHP, programs, hardware, and processes. You come up with a list of shortfalls. What isn't your software doing now that you wish it could? Right? We often refer to those as wish lists. Here's another way of looking at it graphically. You inventory all your programs, you inventory all your hardware, and you inventory all of your processes, okay, all of your core processes. And within that analysis, you are ultimately also, and all three of those, you're finding out where all your data lives, okay? And once you have a grasp on where all your data lives, and by the way, this is an exercise that you have to do if you're looking at cybersecurity, right? Where is your data, right? And then once you have a complete picture of everything, then you can start identifying how to attack that. What can I migrate and what can't I migrate? So here's an example, and your list is going to be way longer than this. What are all the programs you're running? And there's some software utilities that you can run to get a whole inventory of you'll be shocked about the number of programs that you're running. 5 different versions of Adobe Acrobat, right? We have 3 litigators using Clio. We have the workers' comp departments using Amicus. And you look at this and you think, wow, this is just way too complex and we can simplify it. But you have to identify all those programs. You inventory all of your hardware and the age of the hardware, right? So now we can identify, all of our hardware, all of our servers are really due to be replaced within a year. They all have to be replaced within a year. Are we going to invest another $40,000 in servers, or are we going to take that and modernize our organization and move to the cloud? You look at your workstation ages as well, and the mixed environment. You generally try to consolidate and standardize across the board. If you go to cloud-based solutions, you're really looking at replacing workstations every 3 to 5 years, and you're avoiding the servers. You map your processes, right? 2 tools that I use for that are Lucidchart and Visio. That's where you map out your essential processes. And again, when doing all three of these, you're ultimately finding where your data lives, okay? Where your data lives, what programs you need to consolidate, and then ultimately you decide, you analyze which ones you can move over, right? So PHP, programs, hardware, process, where does my data live? Okay, now you have an inventory, and now you can start analyzing, shopping, doing demos, talking to clients, and figuring out what you can actually do and what your low-hanging fruit you can grab. So first, okay, are there cloud applications that can replace your existing programs, okay, and meet your current requirements, right, and as well as your wish list items? So this is what, you know, an excerpt of a functional requirements chart might look like. So from a document management perspective, and it's actually probably pages of requirements, but I need versioning. I can't do versioning now, right? I'm naming documents final, 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 final. I mean it this time. They're spread all over the place, right? So I need versioning. I need unlimited storage. We need to be able to use it on an iPad and an Android tablet. It needs to be SOC 2 compliant, right? So does it meet that requirement, and what program meets that requirement, or what programs meet that requirement? And that's going to narrow down your list of programs to demonstrate. Programs to migrate. Okay, Microsoft Exchange. I can take that completely into the cloud using Office 365 E3 or E5 licensing, right? So I can completely eliminate a server. I can get better service, 24/7, right, around the clock service, no downtime. My Windows-based storage and my mixed Dropbox use, which is within the firm, I can replace completely with NetDocuments. Okay, I have a Amicus attorney that the workers' comp people are using. I can replace that with Clio Centerbase or ActionStep, right? And so you're going to go through program by program and come up with a shopping list or a demo list of programs that could possibly replace those. And then ultimately, those are the ones that you are going to demo and shop. Will you lose or gain clients if you do? Okay, I have a client in Canada. I can't store that data in a US server for that particular client. So I'm going to have to attack that. You have to inventory each and every one of these situations. And it's got to make your way to a checklist. You know, I have a client who's requiring HIPAA compliance, right? I am going to lose a client if I don't go to cloud, and we see that more and more these days, where law firm clients are going to the firm and saying, if you don't move to the cloud, I have to go to a law firm that can actually is in the cloud, who has the security that we need, where you can pass the security questionnaire. As an example, if we look at NetDocs compliance, it would cost us millions of dollars to achieve these certifications within our own organization, right? And this is one of the reasons why our own organization uses NetDocuments for document management. This is just something that a small, medium, or even a large firm, it just cannot achieve this type of world-class security. All right, low-hanging fruit. I want to identify 2 solutions that you could probably tackle in the year 2020 that would make an enormous difference from a cybersecurity perspective and simplifying your own IT infrastructure and your program inventory and your hardware inventory. The first is Office 365, okay, with hosted Exchange, and I would say E3 or E5 licensing. So we eliminate a server, and now we have the entire Office 365 suite available to us. We can install these applications on 5 different devices. We have 24/7 around the clock service uptime, and we've completely eliminated this monstrous program that we have to constantly update and maintain. Okay, so this one's a little bit of a no-brainer to me. Actually, these 2 are. because this is going to eliminate an enormous cost. And we see this trend even in really large organizations over 300, 400, 500 plus users. So this is a solution for a one user environment all the way up to hundreds and hundreds of users. The next would be probably NetDocuments, right? And taking your existing document management, which may be in Windows folders, it may be in on-premise document management solutions, and migrating that to the cloud and having access to your documents from literally anywhere you have internet connectivity, which even could be achieved through through tethering your phone on a laptop if you're out and about. Those two alone would eliminate most of the needs that you would have in that inventory that you have created. There are other needs. There's time billing and accounting. That might be a little bit harder, as we talked about a moment ago. Okay, I want to end with a couple ethical thoughts here, ethical concerns, and these are things that you need to ask yourself, ask the vendor when you analyze the solution that you're shopping. Right. So generally speaking, an attorney may use a cloud solution in any state in the United States, so long as they are taking reasonable steps to protect client confidential information, and they're protecting against the loss of that data. Okay, and that generally means these things. First of all, it's a reasonableness standard. Okay, it is not a bulletproof standard; it's a reasonableness standard, and so that means that it doesn't have to be bulletproof. It just means that you have taken reasonable steps to protect that client information. So the more security certifications, the more processes, the more infrastructure, the more secure the infrastructure is, those type of things. Now, what it also means is the data needs to be segregated. Okay, in the early days of offsite document storage, right? We used to ask this question about the offsite, file storage. Is the data, are the documents, okay, or the banker's boxes back in those days, are they segregated? Are they locked up, right? Are they locked up in their own caged area? Today's world, we ask, is it encrypted? Is the data encrypted in transit and at rest? And we want that answer to be yes. Is the vendor, a reputable company in the business of data storage? Or is it Crazy Kenny's computer service operating out of their garage, right? Is there data backup? And is there redundancy? We talked about that and the differences of that a moment ago. Do they escrow money for operations in the event of insolvency, right? So they give you time to get your data out, right, in the event that they go bankrupt. Will they disclose confidential data if served a subpoena? Will they give you an opportunity to file a motion to quash, to intervene? Okay. Do they protect you? Will they protect you? Are they on your side? Ultimately, they may have to turn the data over, but are they going to give you an opportunity to intervene to protect that client information? The provider cannot have any ownership of data whatsoever. That is a deal stopper, a non-starter from the get-go. So those are the big questions that you have to answer from an ethical perspective. I want to stop. I know I've gone over a little bit here, but kind of a big topic to cover in 30 minutes. I do want to give you an opportunity to ask some questions, to post some questions. I'm going to turn it over to Karen now, and if you do have questions, you can submit those, and I will be happy to get back with you via email or one-on-one. Thank you all very much for attending, and Karen, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Really, really great information. Thanks so much for spending time with us. Great job. And thanks to all of you for attending. If you were intrigued by Paul's presentation this afternoon and want to learn more about building your own cloud strategy, I encourage you to take advantage of our free 30-minute cloud consultation. This is your chance to speak with one of the experts at Affinity and get those nagging questions answered. Just reply to the follow-up email I'm about to send, and I'll do the rest. We do have more DMS-focused sessions coming soon. In February, Affinity partner Ron Morman will be exploring the future of DMS with us. And in March, he'll be explaining how DMS can help protect your data. I'll include links to find out more about both of those sessions in my follow-up email as well. Or you can jump onto affinityconsulting.com/webinars for all the details. Please do share your feedback with us on the survey that follows. Join us again soon.